All right. Well, she didn't say it was, I didn't hear her tell me it was being recorded, but it does say this session is being recorded. Okay, great. All right. So what we're going to do now is, the last thing I'll say about this before we turn it over to Kathy is that, fancy and colorful displays are and all these things and all the nice to haves of laptops and, great stuff. I mean, that's all great. But the most successful tabling events happens when you proactively engage your audience. Sometimes you got to psych yourself up for it if you're not really an outgoing person, to just say, okay, today I'm going to be an outgoing person. I'm going to go out there and just talk to people. Um, that to me, it's years of doing this. There can be one person who has that kind of attitude and can make it just a fantastic event. So have the right attitude. Just be ready to proactively engage with people. Also have your displays; those are important as well. But nothing beats a good attitude and a willingness to talk to people. All right, so I'm going to turn it over now to Kathy, who I think is going to really show us, we're going to get into more of this connecting with people aspect, and we'll go through some sample and some demonstrations of how to have conversations. Certainly these aren't scripts. We don't want you guys to, try to follow them verbatim. They're just ideas. But Kathy is going to demonstrate now. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go into the sample conversation, and then we're going to have Kathy demonstrate what they learned in Montana at a tabling event. So let me start off with the sample conversation. So a lot of people are wondering, okay, so what am I going to say? If somebody approaches the table, what's the first thing I should say to them? And it's pretty simple. You can just say, hey, my name is Ricky Bradley. I'm a volunteer with the Dallas chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. Thank you for being out here to celebrate Earth Day. What brought you out here today? Or is climate change one of your issues? And these questions that you ask at the end, they may vary depending on what type of event you're attending. But obviously at Earth Day, you can ask people, is climate change one of your issues, and probably get a pretty good response there. The next part is let them respond and listen. Really listen to what they say at this point. Then acknowledge what they've said and ask for permission to proceed. That's great. I'm so glad to hear that you're here about composting today. That's a really important part of protecting the environment. Would you like to hear about what we're doing? And ask for that permission to proceed. Listen, let them respond again and listen. So I sort of call this the rinse and repeat cycle. Acknowledge again what they said and ask for permission to proceed. Again, that's an interesting point, and that's something we're concerned about as well. Would you like to hear about more about what we've learned about that? So if they brought up a particular aspect of our policy. But then the last part, the last thing you need to do is you do need to make a close, right? Ask them to join us for an introductory call. Hand them an introductory call flyer. Ask them to sign a letter or a postcard right there. I can't stress how important that is. You've got a captive audience, and probably an audience that's not going to join us. I mean, that just shows what the odds are. I'm not saying we should give up on that, but we really should try to convert them to get them to do an action right away. Get that letter or that postcard to the member of Congress and get that signed right away. All right, so I've been teasing it all night. Now I'm going to have Kathy put this into practice, and we're going to demonstrate what Kathy and Mary Fitzpatrick and Lori Byron, our group up in Billings, Montana, what happened when they were participating at a food co-op Earth Day fair in 2015. So Kathy, do you want to set this up any, and then I'll play the antagonist, so to speak, and you'll play the good person.
Okay. Well, this was our first Earth Day tabling. It might have been our first tabling. We were about 6 months old as a group a year ago. And we had we had a good number of people come to the table. And we just were playing it by ear, and we were having a good time. So the reason I wrote up this talk, this episode, is because of Ellie Sparks and Madeline had introduced the idea of listening as as careful listening, generous listening at the international call the week before. And so when a woman came up to the table and said, so we'll go into it, you probably don't want to talk to me. I don't believe in global warming. We were ready to respond, and it was very exciting. So, Ricky, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll play the woman. How's that?
Go ahead and play the woman.
Okay.
This could be anybody.
Exactly. It could be anybody. Okay, so I'm walking up to the table. I see your table. It's got climate on it. We've all seen that. Sometimes it immediately registers in somebody's eye. And she just looks at you and she says, or I say, you probably don't want to talk to me because I don't believe in global warming.
Not at all. We're delighted to visit with you. Thank you for coming over. Are you having a good time?
Yeah, sure. I shop here all the time, and it's a beautiful day out.
What do you like best about the fair?
I really want to know more about composting. I've probably learned like way too much about it today.
Would you like to know anything about what we're doing?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm conservative, so I'm against climate change action. So you won't like what I have to say.
Well, honestly, we actually do want to hear from you because we want to understand better the people who don't agree with us. It would really help us if you have time.
Well, I have a few minutes.
So, you said you're against action on climate change, is that right?
Yeah, first off, I mean, just, wind and solar, it's just not cost effective, and it's not going to meet our energy needs. It's all, to me, it's just a hoax. We're being lied to. It's a matter of accountability and trust. To me, that's really important. But, thanks for listening. You guys seem like you're a little bit different from other environmentalists I've talked to in the past.
Wow. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. So, trust and accountability are important to you.
They sure are. These hypocrites like Al Gore using climate change for political purposes. All the time he's flying around his private plane in his big house, but he's telling us all that we've got to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
I hear you. Sounds like integrity is a priority for you.
And it sure is.
Well, you're talking to 2 doctors and a counselor. Integrity is a priority for us, which is why we are volunteering for this organization. Well, I'll speak for myself. Citizens Climate Lobby, I really like their integrity, which is why I chose to volunteer with them.
Well, do you think they have an idea to get alternative energy in a practical and cost-efficient way? All right, so that's the end of the role play there. I think, Kathy, you and I can just sort of debrief and talk about the skills that you used and the listening that you did to draw this person out a little bit more. So, do you want to touch on what your big learnings were from this?
Well, I noticed right off that she was defensive. And so that's probably why I was pretty friendly. We are delighted to visit with you. It was, I was inviting her, and I asked her if she was having a good time. I think to suggest that we could have a good time too, talking.
Right.
Then she had a lot of bags. She had picked up a lot of information, and she was carrying different bags. And I noticed they were like string bags. They were not, she wasn't carrying anything plastic. And also she was dressed kind of like a hippie, my age, older hippie. I was really curious about her. So then she answered she wanted to know more about composting. So I felt encouraged. And then I see this is a best practice. Ask permission to continue to take this person's time and attention, especially because she'd started out with, you probably don't want to talk to me. But even though she said, you won't like what I have to say, I actually remembered what we'd heard on the CCL call the week before, and did want to know. This is just, you know, it was honest. I did want to know what she was going to say. So the cost effectiveness of wind and solar was a question that she asked at the beginning, and I could have, well, I would have had to interrupt her. I could have, like, you know, answered that right away, but I didn't. Actually, I don't have that laser talk down very well. And so anyway, I listened to the two words she used, accountability, where was that?
Accountability and trust, yeah.
And trust, somewhere in what she said. Oh yeah, we're being lied to. There it is. So I just repeated what she said. And then I checked with her, so that is important to you. And that, she got some emotional, she was like, raised her voice a little bit. She had anger, and the integrity was, that was a good guess. And I, frankly, I really did connect with the integrity part, because I had searched different groups in my retirement before I chose Citizens Climate Lobby. And integrity, they haven't let me down yet, Citizens Climate Lobby. So then her last question is just what we've heard, that once you let the person be themselves, then they're able to ask a productive question. It was textbook, and well, so I think that's all I have about that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the two things I take out of it as well, and I think it's very important, obviously everything that you said. Also think the fact that you made it personal is great. You know, people can argue about science and all that kind of good stuff, but you talked about personal values like integrity and your integrity. No one's going to argue with you about that, right? And you didn't put her in a position where she had to be wrong and you had to be right. Right? So she immediately comes out and tells you, oh, I don't believe in climate change. And instead of you jumping in and telling her she's wrong, you ask questions instead of putting each other in that adversarial position. So I think that was, I think it was handled beautifully. So we'll talk a little bit more. We'll have some time to ask, people can ask you questions about that here in just a moment as well. But first, let's talk about your best practices that you've sort of come across from your tabling events that you've been doing as well, and maybe just speak to a few of those for us.
You're going to show them on the screen?
Yeah, go ahead. There you go.
Okay, so yes, to have a good time. So gratitude is how we start when we talk to a member of Congress. And so I think that attitude, no matter what somebody says to you, or that we don't expect them to make our day, that we're going to make their day. Next one. And this is straight from CCL. We're interested in them. It's not important that we be so interesting. Okay. Okay, so don't over-prepare is also a thing about expectations. Don't expect yourself to answer everything perfectly, or the people, the volunteers that we have here in Billings. I was talking to them last weekend, and they were nervous about, well, I don't know how to answer this question yet or that question yet. And I think that that's part of being ourselves, being authentic, and I think it's more attractive that we act like real people if we're looking to have people take an action there right at the table, or somebody might decide to volunteer. You don't have to be perfect in order to be a CCL volunteer. And the personal comfort zone, we talk about when we're lobbying how we get to know where our personal comfort zone is, and then that's where the growth starts. And I think that a way to figure this out in a tabling is to notice how I react to somebody. That if I get angry at what somebody says, then that is a sign that I've got something to work on there. That's my comfort zone. And I think that we've also failed to talk with each other afterwards about what happened. And I think I'm going to make sure we do that next week with the new volunteers. You know, how was it for them? What did they like? How did they think I mean, it could be that a volunteer thinks that they did a bad job. And there is no bad job. So, and while we were talking, I thought of a couple other things. We tended to ask, where are you from? And I don't know if that's because Montana is like, the whole state is like a big town or something, but there was that's a way of connecting. You can usually connect that way.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Kathy. If you'll just stay on, we're going to go through just a couple more best practices, and then we got a lot of questions, and I'd look forward to hearing what you think about the questions as well, and we can have other people chip in to answer some. So a couple other best practices. Maybe they seem pretty obvious, but we'll just review them as well. It's best to be standing. In that previous slide that we were looking at, actually, if I can go back, you can see in this picture here, the CCL person at the table is standing, and we've got people there actually participating. The other folks are just kind of sitting down and waiting for people to come over to them. It's always best to be standing, be out front of your booth if you can. Try not to block everything, but if you could be out front, that's even better. Be proactive, actively talk to people. Don't wait for them to come up to your table. You'll be surprised at how many people will sign something if you just ask them to do something. Sign the letter to Congress or a postcard. Be sure we talk about what we are for, not what we are against. CCL, we are for a solution, a particular solution. Personally, we may all be against other things and other approaches. That's fine. But let's really focus on what we're for. And if someone else brings up what they're against, try to direct it back to, to what we're fighting for. That's sort of a CCL way or CCL philosophy. And then avoiding hot button issues. Obviously, you don't want to get in discussions about off-topic stuff at the table because there are people passing by and they may have a false impression about CCL if we're talking about those things. Speak conversationally. Try not to memorize things. That takes practice and takes practice internalizing the messages. Something that's very important that Renee Lertzman just spoke to us about, this idea of the affective or emotional response to climate change. And sometimes as an environmentalist, we use dire messaging, and what that does, that really puts people in an anxious or fearful state, which actually, she says, they're noticing now shuts down their frontal lobe and their creativity and their ability to address an issue. So make sure we're staying away from dire messages. Yes, there are some bad things that are happening, but the way you can couple that or prevent that from happening is to what Rob Weiler used to tell us and still tells us this, is to speak about solutions. So yes, there are some bad things happening, but we can prevent some of these bad things from happening in the future if we were to put a price on carbon and return all the fee to the households. So give them that solution as a walkaway as well. Don't just give them a dire message. All right, so the key learnings for tonight, and then we'll take some questions and do some sharing. Practice. Practice the questions, the listening for values. That's extremely important. Be conversational. Be yourself, as Kathy was saying. Be genuine. That's the most important thing. Try to connect with people based on their values as they come to your tables. Get your logistics covered up front. Make sure, like I said, they've got tables and chairs. That's pretty alarming when you show up and they're not there. And then the follow-up with potential recruits, making sure that happens within 24 to 48 hours. There's a lot of other things that we could have covered tonight. We're trying not to fill up too much of your time this evening. So we have a couple of questions, and I'll go ahead and ask those questions. I'll repeat them. And Kathy, if you have any comments, if anyone else have any comments, please raise your hand. The first question comes from Cindy. She says, if at a busy tabling event for Earth Day, what have people found to be the best way to get attention from people walking by and not coming to your table? So I guess sort of flagging them down, right? And getting them over to your table. Kathy, do you have any thoughts on that? Or does anyone else have any thoughts on that? If you'll raise your hand. I'll just say it's best to be proactive and actually approach people. We usually will have one or two people standing in front of the table. So when someone's walking by, they can't ignore them. They basically say, hey, how are you doing? Would you like to sign a letter of Congress today? And just ask them that question right up front if they look like they're just walking by. Kathy, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Well, I remember last year we had that trip to Mars. So we had a gimmick. Do you remember that? So we had people. Did they take a video of they were supposed to do a selfie and send it into a website? So that was one way we invited people in. This year we have the cardboard cutout of Pope Francis. Lori found that was apparently down at the Wild West regional meeting. Somebody had it, and we have him with us tonight. And we're going to give people the opportunity to get a selfie taken. We'll take it for them with whatever message they want to give, and then just have fun, and something will come to you.
Yeah, I like that. Be creative. So you were saying you have the Pope is going to be at your event? That's pretty cool. I like that.
That's right.
All right. Terry asks, can we get a copy of Climate Jeopardy? I don't know if it's like an official version with Alex Trebek. I believe that was John that brought up Climate Jeopardy. John, if you have some of the questions and if you could send those to me, my email is just citizensclimate.org. The good thing about this new registration system is I have everyone's email address who is a part of the call tonight, and I can send that out to a couple of folks. If you don't have it, John, that's fine. Just shoot me an email and let me know. Bill asks, I noticed in your list of actions you asked people to take at tabling events that the constituents comments form was not there. Do you have any personal experience using this form at tabling events? Bill, the answer is yes. I think when I referred to letters, that's what I meant by the constituent comment forms. So to just show you guys, everyone on the call, an example of what Bill is talking about and what I'm referring to as well. I just called it something else. Let me go over to community, and it is under the outreach resources. There is, I think it's, yeah, it says letters to Congress. You can see the link here. But if you click on it, it is this form that folks can fill out that says, hey, I'm a constituent from this city, this state. The message is important. This part, Bill, I'll tell you, at times gets a little dicey. You do want to remind people, we have a little a display on our table that says, here's some things you could say. Please be respectful, because some people will just go and rail on Congress and tell them, like, do your job and stuff like that. We won't send those letters to Congress, obviously. So it's best if you can give them an idea. We have little bullet points that say, hey, tell them you'd like to see them work together. And please, try to address this problem, things like that. So, yeah, that's the form. I apologize for calling it something different there. Could we discuss, Terry asked as well, could we discuss local environment issues such as coal ash to shift the discussions? Yeah, I think Terry, I think you're fine to discuss whatever feels like right for you at that moment. It's just, I guess you just do want to be clear that, CCL is sort of what we call fuel agnostic. We just want to get rid of emissions. And, if they can find ways to get rid of emissions in different ways, we'll be all for it. We just want to make sure they understand we have one particular ask and one particular laser focus. And then Terry also asked, Kathy, this is a question for you. Do you think you changed this lady's mind?
Oh, that's a good question, because I think that what we strive to do is to influence someone that we come in contact with, and to move them in the direction of doing something about climate. So, like with a member of Congress, we want to move them from being a denier, to remember, moving them in the right direction. They don't have to go all the way. So this woman had a positive experience, and that is enough. I ran into her later at another table, and she was pleasant to me, well, here's my friend from that table over there. So I think that's enough, just to just move the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that's I love that answer. Our one year we were at a tabling event, Earth Day, Texas, in Dallas, and we had someone come up to our table, showed a lot of interest, and I called this person back, twice and tried to get them involved, and I just felt like, oh well, they're blowing us off, no big deal. The same person showed up at the table again a year later, and now he's our Mid-Cities chapter leader here in Texas. So a lot of times what you're doing is, like you said, it is a limited amount of time you're dealing with people. You're not really converting, so to speak, but you're planting seeds to people. And a lot of times these are new ideas to folks, especially pricing carbon. So maybe they go back and they do a little research. Maybe they find out more about CCL. But it is that educational piece and planting the seeds. And I think what you said, Kathy, is important. Having people walk away with a positive view of, a climate advocate, and sometimes is a victory because of the stereotypes we all have for each other, no matter what side we're on. Well, it is 7:59, so we are done for the evening. I don't see any other hands raised. I don't see any other questions. But I appreciate everyone being on tonight. What I'll do is I'll go back and re-record just the first part tonight, so we can edit that and have it available for you as well. So don't worry about my shortcomings there with recording the meeting tonight. Next week on CCLU, we have our communications director, Steve Valk, who is going to walk us through his lesson on writing effective letters to the editor. So, Earth Day coming up, there's going to be lots of great letter to the editor opportunities as well. So next week, Steve will give his world famous lesson on writing letters to the editor, and you guys can register for that as well. And join us next week. Kathy, thank you so much for your sharing tonight. I think the stories were just fantastic, and I hope everyone goes out there and has a great month of tabling, and can't wait to hear all the stories of success. All right, you guys have a great evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ricky.
All right, thanks, Kathy. Have a good night.